It's why I keep saying I'll miss the first 20. I'll miss the first 20% up, but I'm not buying anything until there is clear signed direction on where we're going.
Hey everyone, welcome to our weekly Traded Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. We're going to talk about cannabis. Good to have you part of our audience today. Leave a comment below. Let us know what is going on with this industry, both short-term and long-term. Still a big believer. We'd like to hear from you, and let us know some questions or topics that you want discussed. As usual, all views of the Traded Black podcast, the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or guests as investment advice, and the views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. All right, we're talking cannabis. Kick it off with lead financial writer who's got a ton of knowledge in the industry, Benjamin A. Smith. Ben, good to see you. How was your week,
very good, yes. I hear the safe banking is firing back up, so great that's coverage is going on again.
Did we bring
really
that
trying
up?
To get me, you're really trying to get me started early, huh?
It took 33 days of 2023 before we brought up those two beautiful words. Anthony Varrell, good to see you, bud. How are things?
Yeah, good. It's great. Been in a great mood all week, so I have no complaints.
Well, earlier... Good. Earlier this week, we talked a lot about this colossal bioscience, which was an actually interesting podcast, to say the least, about pre-extinction animals, the dodo bird coming back, and what our thoughts and analogies were and all, but that actually generated a lot of interest. Cannabis, as we've talked about in the past, always generates a ton of interest within this industry, even though things are dead, but there is some chatter about Chuck Schumer conducting meetings in regards to, you said it, Ben, safe banking. Hard to tell where this is going after 2 years of disappointment. Expectations, needless to say, are pretty low this time around. So I got to ask the question, why is this being brought up now? And what should people make of it?
Well, talking about prehistoric dodo birds, I think a lot of people think Chuck Schumer should probably be among them. But unfortunately, he's still roaming Congress.
Yeah, Ben's coming in hot.
And unfortunately, he's still roaming Congress and still controlling the agenda in the Senate. So until he's extinct, I guess we have to talk about him. But yeah, he's had meetings this week in regards to safe banking. No real firm details about what has been accomplished. And at this point, after two failed safe banking runs in the lame duck in 2 consecutive years, I'm not expecting much right now. I think it's just preliminary discussions because the cannabis industry is down. The lobby is probably all over him because the environment isn't as good as it could be, especially in the capital markets. So who knows where this goes? I would caution people not really to act on this because I think it's still several months away, if anything, from happening. But yes, there are meetings going on. There are guys like Don Murphy reporting on it, and he seems to be the new star du jour on Twitter, updating everybody. But yeah, I'm cautious for now. I'm just waiting and seeing until there's something a little bit more concrete to report on. But apparently that's firing up again. Safe banking talks.
Could meetings now and talks now segue into possible, some sort of movement a year from now? We've talked about rescheduling, descheduling, say early parts of 2024. Do these types of conversations need to happen now for that to happen, let's say in 9 to 12 months?
Oh, yeah. These are imperative now. They definitely laid the groundwork for future discussion of future agenda items, and that's how you advance the ball incrementally by having these discussions. You don't just meet one day 9 months from now and then settle everything all at once. So it's a positive from that aspect that they're laying the groundwork for potential future action. But again, my question is always, after safe banking is kiboshed 2 straight years, do Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, really want this to work, to actually happen? We put out a very interesting tweet this week saying about the lobbying, because the news came out that the cannabis industry made a record last year in 2022 with $5.4 million in lobbying outlay in DC. But if you compare that against Big Pharma, I think they put up something like 285 million, or 283 million, something like that. So essentially, Big Pharma is out lobbying U.S. cannabis by 52-1 on that sort of ratio. So you have to wonder, until there's more lobbying money out there, can any concrete cannabis legislation get through?
Wow, that puts things into perspective, right? Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, my wife still thinks I'm an idiot for getting her to buy cannabis stocks for the first time when Schumer came out in November and started talking about stuff. She got into MSOS and Canopy, and she's still like, so what's going on here? So I'm
in the same boat.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic and like patiently waiting. But I mean, at the same time, like I said, I mean, I don't trust a single thing that they're doing or saying. So show me. I'm sitting on my hands until there's some sort of traction here. I'm not going to make a proactive move.
Yeah.
So you didn't put it in the pool this year, Anthony. MSOs didn't go up for you.
No. MSOS has tarnished my reputation around the house in the short term.
Got some interesting feedback from our podcast from last week after the announcement with Cureleaf. There's a couple people that commented on saying, we need to remind Anthony in so many words about how he believes in Constellation. And I actually replied by saying that, well, in a very competitive alcohol industry, if we do see legislation move at some point, good industry to be in with a good track record, believing in Constellation. You care to elaborate a little bit more off of that as to why you believe in that company?
I mean, they're sound operators. They run the liquor business in North America. The liquor business is very sophisticated. It's very hard, and they run it at scale. They're going to be able to run cannabis. Granted, I think that they did make a mistake of investing the amount of money that they did in Canopy when they did, but we all had a much brighter outlook for the cannabis industry when that investment was made to begin with. And if you were levered to the cannabis industry when that investment was made, if you didn't make a boatload of money on the momentum that caused, you're a moron. So I mean, anybody that wants to come on the spaces, come on the show, and make an educated argument as to why I was wrong and why Canopy was dumb for doing what they did and why they're not going to be able to succeed moving forward, come, let's have a chat about it. But I mean, Canopy basically set the cannabis industry on fire when they made that investment. Canopy just happened to, from a domestic standpoint, make a lot of very stupid decisions, and the Canadian cannabis industry kind of collapsed in on itself. And the outwards environment that they were betting on didn't mature as fast as possible. There was no way Constellation could have known that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And to defend you, Anthony, here, not that you need to, my defending, but I think you're absolutely right with Constellation Brands, because if this was like a normal CPG channel, if cannabis was federally legalized, Canopy Growth would have all the advantages of being in that distribution channel, right?
Yeah.
Their mistake was really a function of time. They got in too early. They bought into the fact that legalization may happen, in 5 years, when in reality, when they got in, it's probably going to be, 10 to 15 years away, right? So they got in too early. Canopy used all that cash, and that capital is almost run out. I think an analyst came out this week and say they don't see any path to cash flow for Canopy in the near term. So it's the right idea, if the conditions were set up, that those distribution channels would be perfect for Canopy, but they just got in too early. So Canopy is very interesting because they have that good partnership and they have the pieces, but legislation or the lack of reform is really holding them back. So, do they run out of money first or before things start to happen and unfold is really the big question.
Yeah, I mean,
Ben, you wrote on LinkedIn probably about. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to say that they simply bought the real estate too early, and now they're just burning cash, waiting for the market to mature.
Yeah. Ben, you wrote back, I think it was towards the end of December, your top 3 or 4 or 5 trends that you'll see this year within the cannabis landscape. You care to elaborate on maybe 1 or 2 of those that, that are actually starting to come to fruition based on some of the stuff that you were predicting?
Well, yeah, I think, one of the big things was like M&A. I know a lot of people expected that to happen, mergers and acquisitions, because the pricing is depressed in the capital markets. But I actually didn't expect that would really happen all that much, just because the share capital of a lot of these companies is down along with the market. And I think that, a lot of these companies, they're going to see which companies sort of run out of cash and get even cheaper, and then sort of in a vulture capital situation, maybe pick them up at pennies on the dollar instead of just spending a few $100 million now. So I was on the boat that less M&A would actually happen this year. And I think, Yeah, not a lot happened in the back half of 2022, and you haven't seen any this year. So I think
Right.
that trend is probably the one thing that prevails, and that was counterintuitive to what a lot of people thought.
One thing that you brought to my attention this week, which I was surprised because it's good company, Jushi, since December 6th. I know the industry's been hit hard, but their stock's down 75% since the beginning of December, like 2 months ago. Good time to enter, you think, or like what's your take on it all?
Yeah, it's a tough one. They had a capital raise, I think, is dilutive, so I think that's sort of weighing on their share price. And although I'm not 100% certain, we'll have to look at the latest financials. Um, I think that Jushi is experiencing some pressure after New Jersey went legal, because you have Philadelphia right on the Delaware River. You have Allentown that is very close to it as well. So if a significant percentage of the population lives close to New Jersey, right? So as a medical only state,
Right.
now all of a sudden you didn't have to get your card, right? If you're in Philadelphia, you don't have to go through the process, get a prescription and whatnot, and pay higher prices for medical when you could just go right over the border. And I think it was Cureleaf that has, or I think Terra Center Cureleaf has a dispensary set up literally right after you cross the bridge, like 5 minutes away, right? So I think that's sort of eating into some of the revenue. And there's a few headwinds facing that company right now. But is it good for is it a good company? Yes. Will they benefit strongly from Pennsylvania going legal? Absolutely. So I can't tell you if it's a good idea to buy now, but it's something on my radar because it is definitely taking a pounding.
Anthony, you care to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're in some interesting markets. I mean, it's a stock that I've watched from its inception. I've met the management team. I mean, I think their Colorado operations were kind of lacking, and they had some funky licensing agreements when they first got off. But I mean, they're in some major markets. The problem is they're in major markets that there's a lot of convolution around the regulations that are in them, and I think a lot is yet to be determined. But I mean, I wouldn't shy away from them really moving forward.
Well, interesting times to say the least. To say, like, I know the industry has been hit hard, and it says at some point, do you start to re-enter back into this industry at some of the prices that are being presented to investors right now? But some of the things that still complicate us, like we brought up off the top about, Chuck Schumer talked about the safe banking. Cory Booker, he even actually came out this week lamenting the cannabis space and the crisis of prohibition, laying out challenges of cannabis banking in the new Congress. Ben, I see you shaking your head like you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, no, we put out a tweet out this week that got huge traction. You really can't make this stuff up, and that's why people really hate politicians in the sector. Where you have Cory Booker, the co-sponsor of the CO Act, which almost seemed purposely like it was designed to fail because they wanted way too much taxation, everything. It was way too much. It was never going to pass. We all knew that from the beginning, and then. He's said in the past he would lay down over not passing safe banking before there's social equity added in, right? Which is very punitive as well, and that the other side doesn't want. So to come out and say that what he said and that there's a prohibition of cannabis reform, it's like, come on, man. Like, honestly, you've been the holdup in why cannabis isn't more accessible. Like, you're that guy. And now, so they're playing out two sides of their mouth again. And I think, the whole industry, the whole investing industry cannot stand the politicians because they say one thing and then either do another thing or never deliver. And I think people have had enough of it.
You think? I can't believe the shit, like, what this guy went through over the last 12 months. I don't know. It's just like politicians are supposed to make things look like
They're the worst.
Less
They're
obvious.
the absolute worst.
But this is so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
It's almost like they're going for big
It's literally why I
pharma,
keep.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's why I keep saying I'll miss the first 20. I'll miss the first 20% up, but I'm not buying anything until there is clear signed direction on where we're going. I don't need to buy the boom on the day that everything gets announced. I'd rather not versus everything gets chopped in half again from here because we just spin for the next 365 days.
Good way of looking at it. Elsewhere, California officials are seeking a formal opinion from the state attorney general's office on whether allowing interstate marijuana commerce would put the state at significant risk of federal enforcement action. The request for guidance from the Department of Cannabis Control, otherwise known as the DCC, is a key step that eventually triggers a law that Governor Gavin Newsom signed last year, empowering him to enter into agreements with other legal states to import and export marijuana products. So in a nutshell, Ben, explain to us what this means.
Yeah, they're just trying to get guidance whether the bill that that Gavin Newsom signed is valid. And this wouldn't take effect, to my understanding, until federal legalization actually happened. But they're trying to get ahead of the curve and trying to allow their own individual agreements to export cannabis because they're a big producing state. And this sort of piggybacks on a decision made last year in the second half in a federal circuit court in Maine that basically said that interstate commerce is legal and that they can't exclude cannabis from interstate commerce like regular products. So this is a positive step. I don't know whether it's going to be implemented anytime soon in California, but they're definitely trying to get ahead of the curve. And we had companies like Glass House Brands, which is probably the best position to take advantage of interstate commerce because they grow at scale in California at a very good costs. They spiked on the news, so that was good for a few players in the industry. I don't know what to make of it right now. I think it's just basically setting up the pieces for at a later date, but I wouldn't expect anything tomorrow, next month, or anything like that.
Anthony, do you think interstate commerce will ever happen?
I mean, it could. Do I think it's going to? Probably not. I mean, there's been billions of dollars that have been invested in these there's been billions of dollars that have been invested in these cannabis markets. There's billions of dollars in tax revenue that's being generated by these cannabis markets. If you allow California, Oregon, and Washington to flood the country with legal product, which they can, and they would, in those scenarios, you're going to put the companies that have deployed tons of capex in these markets at a serious disadvantage. Because, I mean, unless it's a super vertical license like Florida, where you need to be growing or cultivating, distributing, processing, and selling, if I can get product from California that's sure as hell going to be cheaper than what I'm getting it from Trulieve, I'm just going to go buy a retail license and then just get my product from the left coast where the product is going to be better. I don't see Pennsylvania, New York, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Michigan allowing this to happen because they'd cannibalize their own markets.
Now, I'm going to take the other side of this.
Ben, you agree with that?
I actually don't. I'm going to take the other side of Anthony. I think it's eventually going to happen. I think the vertical state model in which they have to grow and produce and retail in their own state, individual state, I think that's going to break down over time, but it's going to take something like federal legalization to happen. And I think when that does happen and federal brands become a thing and start being developed, I think that the big MSOs are going to be all for it. They're going to want that cheaper input costs coming from California because it's better product and it's much cheaper product, and that's going to allow the more competitive pricing for their national brands when that becomes a thing. In terms of the states, will they allow it? I don't know how it's going to work right now. I think they're going to be able to work something out. I don't know how what that's going to look like, but it's just going to make too much sense to produce cannabis in a state where input costs are your biggest expense and are much lower, and in California than it would be to do this in each individual state in the current vertical license model.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really. I tend to agree with you in a lot of the things you just said. I mean, I think it's a valid point, and I do think that it would compress margins to where they could possibly be making more money. However, if Cali weed floods Florida and all of the current license holders start buying it, there's going to be a race to the bottom at the retail price as well. So while your margin might expand on your cost of goods, from that standpoint, I mean, it'll be price wars at the consumer level, which are going to be basically gloves off. Whoever's cheapest is going to win.
Yeah, There will be, but it's no different
And
than
can those
something like
companies operate?
alcohol,
Yeah.
right? I mean, why don't alcohol is produced and mass produced in low cost jurisdictions, and it's not like produced in each individual state. So I kind of look at it as being the same dynamic. Yes, prices will go down. That'll be good for everybody. But if your input costs go down 30%, then your prices can go down roughly the same amount, and you can still make the same amount of margin. So I think we're going to see those type of dynamics. But we'll see.
And this leads me to the last thing that I said about Canopy. You know who owns the alcohol industry? About 3 or 4 different companies that own everything. So if that's where we're going, my bet's on Constellation and Canopy.
Okay, so how do we see this once the dust settles, the end game here? How many companies are left in the cannabis space, you guys think?
Probably 4 or 5.
4
Majors.
or 5.
Yeah.
And then those 4 or 5, will they get bought out by big alcohol companies or just stay their own identity?
Oh, it depends. It depends. Can they survive? I mean,
well, if you're saying 4 or 5 will survive, then those 4 or 5, let's say, do survive. How do you see it playing out?
But I mean, if you're going to go on the thesis that sure is the success of cannabis warranting alcohol buying them out, like do they need to exist like symbiotically? You don't see alcohol companies buying cigarette manufacturers, and cigarettes go great with alcohol. They're distributed probably just the same and have the same regulatory hurdles. I don't think cannabis companies will need to be acquired to stay autonomous and stay profitable and survive. It'd probably make their life a lot easier. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Diageo, Brown-Forman, LVMH, those alcohol companies try to acquire big cannabis, but I don't think it's going to be like a need or something that they have to have to survive.
I'm going to go with yes, just because we have a precedent already with Constellation. We have Juul or Altria that went in with Juul, or Kronos, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago. So we have that, we have that precedent there. But I think if it's going to happen, it's going to, cannabis is going to have to basically take shape of the same CPG model that they have right now. All these barriers are going to have to come down. They're going to have to be able to produce it at scale, get cost certainty, get supply chain certainty, and they're going to be able to have to run the business the way they're running their existing alcohol businesses right now for it to make sense. There's no way they're going to go into a fragmented market in a vertical integrated model that's present right now where it can't be mass produced. It's going to have to go legal, federally legal. And, it's unfortunately Canopy got in a little bit, Constellation got in a little bit too early. And I think that was their biggest mistake, right idea. But, it's all about timing, right? So I tend to think it will, but it's not anytime soon. And that's why we haven't seen any big deals happen within the last 3 or 4 years after the initial excitement that legalization might happen a little bit quicker when Canada went legal. After the stalemate we've seen in the U.S., I don't think it's going to take a while.
Wherever you look, government officials talking about how bad alcohol is for you, people looking to go dry. You look at the consumption trends that are happening across the board. Edibles is blowing up within the space. Do you think we will one day see cannabis beverages become a bigger market share than alcohol beverages are, Anthony?
Bigger? I mean, I don't ever see don't get me wrong. I hate drinking. I don't drink very much. I might drink once a month. And I don't like alcohol. I consume cannabis every day. I don't think I've ever in my life had a beer, glass of wine, or a liquor drink outside of a social setting, or at dinner. I don't think you're going to have Dolphin Stadium selling as many cannabis beverages as you do Bud Lights.
So you never see that happening.
No, I mean, they're different. The different experiences. If I drink a 5 milligram or a 10 milligram beverage, I can greatly appreciate the feeling that it gives you, but it doesn't make me want to go cheer and be in a stadium full of 70,000 people. I'd rather be enjoying a nice dinner or watching a movie or being at a concert. Sure, but the World Cup ain't going to be selling Canopy beverages out the door like they are Heineken's.
Right.
I just don't. I think people will. There is a certain
Cannabis beverages
consumer.
and sports do not align, but they do.
I
at
mean, I don't think
concerts,
cannabis.
right?
I don't think. Yeah, but I don't think cannabis beverages. I don't think cannabis, the THC experience, is as scalable from a consumer perspective versus alcohol.
Yeah.
In a social setting. At the same time, I think you would be able to pick up that slack with someone eating an edible every night around like 8 o'clock versus drink a 6-pack. I mean,
Right.
it's much better for you, and it's already been proven that it's preferred by most consumers that have been
There are
polled.
cannabis lounges opening up everywhere in LA right now. And yeah, I'd be curious to see what that atmosphere would be like walking into a place like that versus say an actual,
Oh, it's
historic
great.
bar.
It's fucking great. I've been to them in Cali.
And what's it like?
It's awesome. So you literally you walk in, the first step is a dispensary. So you buy it's not advanced yet, but you walk in, you buy your product, extract, flower, joints, go around to another station that looks like a bar, which is all glassware, volcanoes, rolling papers, anything you need to consume your product. And then you walk into this room that looks like a bar. It's all
Right.
wooden tabletops, leather booths and couches, tables. I mean, the cannabis consumption lounges are fucking awesome.
What's like when you walk into a bar, loud, like rowdy, like there's a lot of like excitement in the air as far as like walking into a bar.
It ain't loud.
When you walk into what's the cannabis like? What's the atmosphere like?
I mean, most people are just casually consuming cannabis, having a conversation with the people that they came there with. Other people were on their laptops working.
Okay.
Some people were there just to probably find an environment where they can go consume and not be bothered. It was not a bar atmosphere whatsoever. It was more of a library vibe, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. But I would go to a cannabis consumption lounge. I don't go to bars. Like you'll never see me like be like, all right, it's Tuesday night. Like there's nothing going on. I'm bored. Like let's go to the bar. I would go to a dispensary and pick up a new product that just came out, and then go consume it in a consumption lounge. 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I was impressed with. I did
Interstate-
a cannabis drink for the first time recently, last September, and I was actually very impressed. So I was in the camp that thought, okay, there's no way beverages could ever supplant, vaporizers or joints. But I'm like, I had a really good night. We were at a bar. I was actually with Shad. We were at the Benzinga conference in September, it was really impressive. So I could see how the younger generation, if attitudes change over time, I could see it becoming definitely a segment on the increase.
Yep.
I don't know whether it'll ever get to vaping or smoking.
I think beverages and edibles are going to be the biggest category. Like
100%.
Smoking something, combusting and inhaling organic matter on a daily basis is not healthy for you. Like it's not.
Even vaping? Even vaping or just smoking?
Yeah, no. Vaping's not good for.
No.
I mean, you're inhaling shit into your lungs. Like you're inhaling a foreign substance that you need to apply heat to and combust and breathe it in and then exhale it. That, and it's granted, I smoke, but it is not healthy for you. I would much rather eat an edible or take a drink. And the consumers that I know and I know a lot of them that were completely against cannabis, that are now consuming it, they won't touch anything that you have to smoke. They're buying edibles and they're buying drinks, and they're completely fine with it.
So what do you think? What do you think right now is the number one improvement companies have to make pertaining to cannabis beverages?
Have you tried Canopy's beverages?
I have not, but
they're great.
There is a lot of feedback that we get about consistency, is what we hear time and time again.
Okay, easily. Biggest improvement: shelf stability. Shelf stability and consistency. But I've had Canopies, I've had Organigrams, I've had plenty of them in the States. They're good. I mean, for the most part, it tastes like a craft soda that you would have that's spiked with cannabis. I like gummies. To me, gummies are the best. There is no better product than a cannabis gummy. You get a 10 milligram gummy. You can split it in quarters, split it in half, eat the whole thing. You know exactly what the experience is going to be every single time, and it's like eating a piece of candy.
It works too.
Yeah, true.
Very good sleep aids. They work.
It works great. It works great and it's consistent every single time. You know exactly how you're going to feel.
How about that Eddie's Betty's Merrimack? That saltwater taffy, like a Starburst. Ooh, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, I once, like 5 years ago, like we got these gummies from California, and we didn't realize they were like 100 milligram like gummies.
100 milligram. Oh, wow.
How was that night?
Not good. Not good. I've eaten edibles a couple of times where I bit off too much than I could chew, and it is the worst experience you can possibly go through because there's no shutting it off.
Ugh. Yeah, I got to be careful.
Yeah.
All right, gents, I'll let you run. Great week. Week off of football, but with stages set next week. Eagles and Chiefs, and all this stuff about this game being rigged. I'm just like, me personally, the gambling world has become a bunch of gambling degenerates. It's like, this is not rigged, you know. And I know who is the former running back for the Houston Texans?
Arian Foster.
Okay, Arian Foster is actually a very highly educated and intellectual dude. What he was saying was complete satire. He wasn't being serious.
So?
He was mocking everybody.
Oh, gotcha.
He was mocking everyone that was saying that the game was rigged.
Right.
Like, those refs should all be fired as far as I'm concerned. Like, there was a lot of calls they made that were less than ideal. Those refs are shitty at doing their job. But is the NFL rigged? No.
I don't know. I didn't see anything too egregious. I imagine you're talking about that Bengals-Chiefs game in particular. I didn't see anything too egregious. Perhaps they're a little subjective.
I'm only talking about the Bengals-Chiefs game.
There was a lot of bad calls, Ben. Like, there was the one. What was that one play? They played out that third down and had to replay it.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs
Granted.
That was a bad call.
So here's the thing, though. But it wasn't rigged. If you watch the replay, you can see the referee coming into the frame in the secondary that he's blowing the play dead. He just didn't blow the play dead quick enough or loud enough for anybody to realize it. That's on him.
Loud stadium.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that bad call was made because of the ineptitude of the referee. It was not scripted. It was not anything. Like, he just did his job pretty bad. He should be fired. That was a turning point in the game. But also, Jamar Chase got hit in the head with that pass. If he catches that pass, the game's over and the Bengals probably win.
Yeah.
So
no, but some of those calls. My point is that some of those calls were subjective, but they were still actually happening. Like, a couple, maybe you could say maybe shouldn't have been called, but they were still they still easily could have been called fouls. And then at the end of the game, where Mahomes got pushed out of bounds, I mean, that was a foul. Like, you can't do that. I mean, what?
Oh, 100%. 100% it was. That was. But, I mean, as far as refs go, everything is subjective. These are still human beings at the end of the day. It's not AI that's sitting there and just black and white. Yes, no, yes, no. I mean, there's an interpretive element to everything that these guys do.
Okay, quick question on that vein. In baseball, would you support, like, AI making the calls behind the plate where they can be exact every time, or do you still want the human element in there?
Yes.
You would support that?
No. 100%.
And why not?
Because baseball is consistent. That ball is going to the same spot every single time. And if you have a computer with a camera that's programmed for machine learning, that computer is smart enough to measure the batter, to develop a strike zone, and then it's very linear. That ball hits that zone, it's a strike. That ball is outside of that zone, it's a ball. There's no interpretation there.
Yeah. Well,
I think I think that the home plate umpire is probably the only position in professional sports that you could make an argument that they could be replaced by a machine. Yeah, everything 100%. Else, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But that,
yes. I think you're right. You got a shot clock in the NBA, and I know it's completely different, but it's computer. You got 24 seconds. You got to shoot. Yeah. You can do the exact same thing within a strike zone. But ask me where baseball is in 25 years from now. I don't know how to answer that. Like, it's just.
Look at this. Look at the stats. It's one of the fastest growing sports right now, actually, despite what we all think.
Baseball is?
Is it really?
Yeah, I was surprised. I
didn't know that. I actually.
Scotty Brahman here. They have a few comments in education.
It actually is one of the fastest growing sports in popularity. And I didn't think it was.
Really?
Yeah. I don't believe it, but apparently it is.
Do you pick? All right. Last thing. You pick the Eagles or Chiefs?
Chiefs.
Ben.
My first reaction,
Chiefs?
I don't know. I haven't really come to a conclusion yet, but my first reaction was Chiefs. I think Mahomes is the better quarterback. I just have this feeling that Hurts is going to, like, if you look at the way he played against the 49ers, it was a lot of short passes, and, you know, they have a good offense, but I think that they can be stifled under the right conditions. Huh? I just trust Mahomes more than I do Hurts at this point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They're a favorite right now.
If you watch that game, the Eagles' offense was kind of shit, and the San Francisco defense basically killed themselves all day with penalties that were just self-inflicted.
Were you suited up in that game?
The what?
Were you suited up in that game? Were you the fifth quarterback to come in, Anthony?
I was actually okay. So I bet on the Eagles.
Did you?
I had a bet with somebody else that I had the Eagles straight up. I thought that if Christian McCaffrey was going to put the helmet on and become quarterback, San Fran was probably going to win that game by some act of God. That he was just going to come out and stifle their defense and just will that team to win running some wildcat crazy shit. I did not want to see him play quarterback.
They brought up, 8-9 guys on the line. They couldn't run the ball. They had no deep threat, right? So
but the Chiefs are starting to control the run, too. So look at that. And that's why I say that the last 2-3 games, they're playing the run really well.
Are they?
And if they play the run well, then it's the Chiefs passing game. I'll take that over the Eagles. So I think the Chiefs are set up to win here personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a matter of, does Patrick Mahomes have enough time to pass? Because that Eagles D-line is probably the best in the league.
Well, he can get rid of the ball quick. He's that good.
Yeah.
But I think there's a difference between a heavily favored Chief team playing Tom Brady and the Bucks from 2 years ago versus, say, a favorite. Well, actually, they're not even a favorite right now, but a Chief team playing the Eagles team. You know, the Eagles were in the Super Bowl 5 years ago, but how much of that roster is still on that team? A lot of young guys, but I think the Chiefs do win in this game.
I think the Eagles make the game, though.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. But I think, you know, the end of the day, I think experience of being there, three times? Is this, they won against San Fran, they lost against Tampa, so this is his third Super Bowl, right, that he's playing in?
I mean, I think I think the Eagles are a better team, top to bottom.
Yeah.
But they've got the Chiefs of Patrick Mahomes. I'm not betting on the most gifted person to come into the NFL in the last 5 years. Like, he can will a team to win. And I think he's the only player in the NFL that can do that.
One thing's for sure, that Bengals-Chiefs rivalry, it's on. Especially after what Kelsey said. That is on. But anxious to see how that'll unfold again next year. Anyways, enjoy your week, guys. We'll catch up to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys.
Talk to you guys.
Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.